Very, very special good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and a big welcome to you to this very important session of VAP Gurus Live episode 15, which is on employee safety and health in the COVID era. Friends, we all know what we are going through. We are in the middle of a global pandemic. Just last 24 hours only, there have been a record, I think 57,000 new cases. I know the numbers are disturbing. We've had more than 750 deaths, and we've already crossed 1.65 million, total cases. States like Andhra Pradesh, their cases have jumped up by almost like 900% in a month's time. So somewhere, some states are doing it right. Somewhere, some are not doing it right. What are the do's and don'ts? What are the discussion points? Let's have a look quickly. I just share my screen. Okay, so these are our points of discussion on our website. So first of all, the topic again for you, employee health and safety in the COVID era. And of course, it's powered by Meri Reports. Meri Reports, friends, is a group venture. It is all about sharing your medical reports, prescriptions, and your scans with your doctor. In today's time, when you cannot meet face-to-face, you can always share your reports through Facebook, WhatsApp, or email in a secure way, fast way. You can, time bar the link. You can password protect, lots of stuff that can be done. MeriReports.com. So friends, our speakers today, we have with us Dr. Sai Kiran Chaudhary. He's a leading pulmonologist of India, right in the thick of things. As in fact, he has joined us from his hospital where he's treating hundreds of COVID patients as we speak. We have Dr. Apurva Gupta, who's a leading gynecologist of India. She's also joined from right outside the labor room. She wants to be right next to her patients, right next to the people who need her. We have Mr. Harbhajan Singh, who's the Chief of Strategy and People Care at the SGT University and a former director at Honda Two Wheelers. And then, of course, we have Professor Kanika T. Bhal, who's a Dean Planning and Professor of Management at IIT Delhi. And Mr. Chandan Sen Gupta, he's a CHRO, Sandhar Technologies. And of course, there's me, Anuj Gugyani from the World Order Forum. And friends, I will be incomplete in my introductions if I don't say that Mr. Harbhajan Singh, Professor Kanika T. Bhal, and Mr. Chandan Sen Gupta have been inducted in the finest CHRO Club of India by World Order Forum on 28th of February 2020. So friends, these are our annual partners, who help us pay our bills and, take care of our expenses. So first of all, we have in our gold partners, Gallops Motors. It's one of the leading retail chains of automotive retail in India, representing several brands. We have a group company, MotorUncle.com. It's a group company of World Order Forum. Then we have our OEM partner, which is Volkswagen, the #1 car maker of India, known for their very strongly and well-built cars. We have Amplus Solar, who are on a mission to transform automotive power to solar, and they want to power the automotive dealerships, factories, and warehouses on solar. We have world's #1 lubes company, friends, Shell. They are our annual partner. We have K2B, one of the leading training companies of India. Then we have Jubilant Motorworks, part of the Jubilant Group. Again, one of the leading automotive retail companies, representing several automotive brands around the country. And our media partners, Autotech Review, which again is the #1 automotive technology journal, based in Germany, and they have a very vibrant presence in India as well. And of course, Patriot, a newspaper with a fine lineage, started by our late freedom fighter, Miss Aruna Asaf Ali ji, 6 decades back, known for their unbiased journalism. Coming to the topics of discussion, they're right here. So it's already been 4 months. How long is the COVID journey? How serious is the threat now? How and have things really improved, and how can they be improved? Herd immunity, which a lot of countries tried and it backfired, would it work in this case? What is the ideal time for quarantine? We keep hearing, 7 days, 14 days, 3 weeks. What's the ideal time? Then several companies have announced work from home to 31st December. In fact, Google is the latest to come out. They say June 2021. So what are the practical, functional, medical, mental health repercussions of working from home? Some simple practical tips for health and safety and basics where most people go wrong. We've seen some states like AP, what we've just seen, 860% increase vis-a-vis other states where the corona is on the decline. So what is the right way and what is the wrong way of doing things? How should health and safety procedures vary? In an organization where you have 0 to 5 employees, 6 to 20, they say you have hundreds of employees, You have thousands of employees, or very global organizations where there are lakhs of employees around the world. How do they vary the procedures? Then conquering diverse demographics, psychographics with a common challenge of safety and health at, again, global organizations. How to handle a pandemic outbreak in an organization, factory, or office on a practical basis. When it's really hit your organization, what should be, our code to fight it and to manage it? Then how to decide who comes to office, factory, and who works from home? Do we do an immunity, test or a report card, or do we do some profiling? What should be the method? Then medicines, homeopathy, pranayam, yoga, ayurveda, reiki, what can work to fight COVID? Then when do we really expect the vaccine? People say it's going to be there at the end of the year. Then administering, it all over to everybody. That will be the next challenge. And when it comes, would it really be the panacea? People talk about a second and a third and a wave, or each year corona coming in a new avatar, new strands. What are the experts' thoughts on this? So these are a few questions, concerns that we had received from around the world, from the World Order Forum members. So now I'll quickly stop the sharing of the screen, and let's start on the medical aspect with Dr. Sai Kiran Chaudhary, who is in the middle of the things, who is the head of the department of COVID at his institute. Dear sir, all yours, sir.
Yes, we've been through a tough time over the last 4 months, and Delhi fortunately is showing a decline at its peak. The numbers, but we should not take it lightly. There could be a very second wave going ahead, because like in all pandemics, we've seen viral pandemics, there is always a second peak which happens, because the lockdown resulted in reduced intensity. The number of cases would have been more had the lockdown not been there. And the job is very well done in India so far, considering the population, the diverse socio-economic diversities and all. So we'll have to live with this. And this season, at least when I say this season, it goes up to March 2021. And like all viral illnesses which we've had, like swine flu, the first 2-3 years had been very bad with high mortality figures. But as the number of years go by, the viral infectivity gets a little low, and then it will become normal, Oh, corona, there would be just take it lightly. But it has in the limelight because it has affected every country, most of the countries globally. The effect has been so much that we are talking about it every day in some sort of webinars. So next question is, you cannot be in a lockdown all the time, right? You have to run your home economy. You have to survive. And yes, you have to go out, work. And I think mask will become the norm. Mask, face shields, gloves. Gloves would become the norm. And that would be part of culture now, routine. And we'll have to take precautions at work, at place. We are an organization, we are a healthcare institution where we expected the healthcare workers would get affected in large numbers, but we did measures, we took very strict measures, simple measures like everyday documentation of symptoms in every department. We sent a chart, and the head of the department was responsible to ensure that every employee fills self-declaration, whether he had cough, fever, any signs of breathlessness. We had a temperature monitoring, and we did use a pulse oximeter because we had the saturation, we have the facilities to do it. So every department we made a chart and filled it every day. And then we had our own infection control committee that everyone who had fever or any of the symptoms just report. And fortunately, considering that we being in a healthcare industry, a small organization was exposed to COVID, being a cardiorespiratory center where every patient could be a potential COVID suspect, uh, the number of people or employees that have got infected with COVID-19 has been very less, and
Very
none of
heartening.
them were serious, any serious illnesses. But the thing is, we have to start right from scratch, right from entry point of an organization, right where what is the at every level of organization, what is the interaction between people, how to, at the end of the day, only two things are going to help you:
Okay.
your face mask and your frequent hand washing.
That's it. There's no.
Yes.
So, Dr. Sai Kiran, what are the top, 3 or 4 things which people are doing it wrong? When you are getting so many patients in your ward, your hospital is overflowing with patients of COVID. Whenever you have spoken with them, what do you feel are the top 3 or 4 things that they did wrong, which they should have avoided?
See, the practice of wearing the mask. All right, they'll just cover it like this. It's just for the namesake they are wearing a mask. It should cover the nose. It should cover the nasal-oral cavity completely. Second is using mask with valves. You see those masks with valves, expiratory valve, which helps you breathe out easily.
Okay.
So those are actually harmful for the other person.
Ah, really?
Yes.
Okay.
A simple mask is enough. I've been using a simple mask and I throw it away after 2 hours.
Okay.
Keeping an N95 mask, people are reusing it, rewashing it, drying in the sunlight. That is all wrong. If N95 is only recommended for people, healthcare professionals who are at high risk jobs, who are in a high risk area, who are exposed to COVID, for them it is helpful.
Okay.
A simple mask, frequent hand washing, and when I say frequent hand washing, it should be with soap and water rather than using sanitizers.
Okay.
Frequent use of sanitizers, some people are getting hypersensitivity reaction to it. They are having asthmatic-like symptoms. Then it becomes very difficult to differentiate. Is it asthmatic cough or is it a COVID cough?
Oh.
So how do you differentiate it? Whether there is fever or not. So, rather than making things very complicated, I think it should be kept simple. Let us use face mask in a proper way. We should discard our face mask very frequently, use a new set again. And third is frequent hand washing.
Great. I think.
And in a public place and all,
you're really
like an office, social distancing, use of face shields, and areas which are likely to have a high risk of transmission would be like the public transport,
right?
The restaurants, the gyms, the malls, the schools, the universities. They are going to be high transmission areas when they open up, and once they open up, we could just see a little bit of surge in the number of cases.
Great.
Yeah, so Dr. Sai has covered very well.
Yes.
He's very well covered. I just want to add one point here. So very rightly said, people are wearing masks just for political correctness. So I see most people just the masks should be hanging down, and the moment there's someone close by, they would raise their mask. So apart from the fact that we should wear the mask rightly, that it covers the nose and the face, a lot of people just keep touching the outer portion of the mask for adjustments again and again.
True.
So we have to understand that the outer portion of the mask is deemed infective. Absolutely. So if we are touching it again and again and then touching other places, so we are potentially increasing the chances of infection. Also, I feel many people wear gloves and get into a false sense of security. Oh. So, you wear gloves and then you touch something and then you don't wash your hands or sanitize them because you're wearing gloves. And then you keep touching n number of places with infected gloves. So sometimes I feel for general public, maybe not wearing gloves is a better idea, and, reminding constant hand washing. Because that way, at least they would wash their hands often. If you wear gloves and get into a false sense of security, then it actually can get counterproductive. So,
Great. These
I
are
think,
fantastic.
Gloves are actually a more source of infection
Uh-huh.
rather than protection.
yeah.
So I think both our doctors have they have actually busted a lot of myths. Because, as what Dr. Sai Kiran said, that using an N95 mask with that, exhaling, feature, you're actually endangering the people around you, because air is coming out. And also, as Dr. Apurva mentioned, gloves is a false sense of security. And if you keep touching things around, if you keep touching the mask outer periphery, it completely defeats the purpose. In fact, most of our honorable ministers, when they're giving their press conferences, they are doing just the same. I will not name them. It's all there on YouTube.
And the point of the valvular masks really need to be underscored. It really needs to be underscored, because that's also another false sense of security. If you're in an organization and you're in an office and people are wearing masks with expiratory valves, it's practically of no use, because everybody assumes they are not infective. But what if you're an asymptomatic carrier? It's the worst thing to do. So
Absolutely.
I know of many organizations who have actually banned the valvular masks. Even in my own personal clinic and the hospital that I work, we do not allow patients with valvular masks. We give them a surgical mask to wear on top of it, because a plain mask would probably do a better job.
Yes.
Fair enough. So getting now Mr. Chandan Sengupta in the conversation. So Mr. Sengupta, after listening to our expert doctors, do you feel that people wearing masks with expiratory valves should actually be expelled from the organization?
We had taken this call a long time back when we have this from WHO as well as ICMR. And what we did is we encourage our employees to stitch a 3-layered cotton mask. And we were purchasing the same for them for 20 rupees per piece and supplying it free to our employees and as a CSR activity also. So what happened is that their income and livelihood also went up during the lockdown period, and the organization and others also benefited from the same. Yes, the N95 mask and the valve mask are a complete no in the organization.
Okay. And Mr. Sengupta, if you can share, because you have global operations, you have operations in China, in Europe, and the other countries possibly got hit much earlier than India. So some of your experiences and how you managed to contain, how you fought back COVID in other countries, and how you continue to fight even now in India. If you can just throw some light on that.
Yeah, sure. As you said, we have subsidiaries and JVs in China, Taiwan, Spain, and Mexico. And China and Spain were the first to be hit in the month of December. If I see today, India is far more resilient, and people are far more resilient than people in Spain and Mexico. They were taking care of these people was a major concern. We had something around 55% employees in Spain down with the COVID-19 virus. We set up a Sandhar helpline. We used to talk to them on a regular basis twice a day through Zoom and other calls, just to motivate them and the family members so that they don't go into a depression. Because when you're in isolation, that was the worst part of it. Not being able to talk or meet your family. And secondly, the family was again in a total despair. You don't know what will happen. And the deaths at that time was the highest. I'm talking of December, January, which helped us in collate all the data, and we were ready by 15th of Feb in case something happened in India. So by 20th of Feb, we had a Sandhar protocol manual in place for handling COVID. We had work from home in place for handling the workplace. And we also had migrated from server-based to a cloud-based thing, which helped people to work easily from their homes. But yes, speaking to the people, motivating them was a great challenge. First time I spoke to the family members of employees in Spain, they would break down and cry like mad. So we had to get in the female HR persons also to speak to the wives and daughters.
Okay.
They were the most vulnerable that time. So encouraging them, motivating them, even telling them what to take, the food part of it, how to make kada, right?
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, we did that. And even in India, we did the same. Plus, we made it mandatory that anyone who is down with this COVID-19 virus must take 1 egg a day. A lot of people who were vegetarians, we had to convince them, treat it as a medicine. Simple. If you want to save yourself, build up a immunity. And we went in for breathing exercises for all the people that were affected with COVID-19.
Wow, that's
Today,
really.
I can say that all 55% in Spain have recovered back and are back to work. Now, when this happens, the confidence goes up in the organization. Same thing has happened in India also. I think there are 20 new cases which has come up this week, which is in the south, in Chennai and Bangalore. Otherwise, in north and west, all the people who had viruses have recovered and are back to work.
That's
That
beautiful.
signal creates a lot of encouragement and hope for people. Yes, we can fight and we'll survive. It is nothing that we can't overcome.
So, Mr. Sengupta, when COVID strikes an organization, a factory, a warehouse, and people start getting infected, at an exponential rate, what should be the code book? How should one fight, manage, and contain, the issue?
What we did was we had fumigated and sanitized the plant much before 14th of April, which was supposed to be the first lockdown to be over. And we were ready with all the chemicals, sanitizers, gloves, as I said, masks also. And we have a plant for making of helmets. So we converted that into making of face shields, which we supply to the police personnel, to hospitals, and to all our employees. As you know, we have assembly operations. In assembly operations, it is not possible to have the distance that is mandated by the government. So we use the 3-layered mask and the face shield. So the virus happened not in the associate category, but in the staff category because of laxity, because of not maintaining the social distancing, because of sharing food together, which was not being done by the associates. And we see the problem happening more in the urban area than in the rural area. Rural area, people are following all the SOPs laid down by the MHA strictly. But we here in the urban areas, we go out without mask. We are going and not maintaining the distance. I saw people hugging each other in the malls.
Oh my God.
This is how we are creating a problem for ourselves.
So, Mr. Sengupta, should the factories or warehouses or offices operations be shut down moment there is even a single person infected? What should be the strategy?
No, what we had done, and I am the member of CII, also ACMA, we had recommended to the Haryana government and also the central government that instead of closing down the factory, this is not a house, this is not a residence.
True.
What we did, we stopped the operations in that particular area, fumigated, did deep sanitization, and reopened it within 48 hours.
Okay.
All the people who were primary contacts were quarantined for 14 days and monitored. And then they were asked to take a medical check and come back to work, which has worked perfectly fine for us.
All right. That's very nice to know. So now getting Professor Kanika T. Bhal, Kanika ma'am in the conversation. Kanika ma'am, you are one of the authorities on HR. You have been consulting so many organizations on organizational behavior, development, HR issues. What is your observation? How are companies, organizations responding to this challenge? What is the right way of doing it? What is the wrong way of doing it? If you can just share, ma'am.
Yeah, so good evening to all of you. And, to begin with, my deep compliments and deep gratitude to doctors like Dr. Sai Kiran Chaudhary and Dr. Purva Gupta. You're fighting for us. We are deeply indebted to you, and we can be what we are because of what you are, at this point in time. So thank you very much. And I think all of us are into this very unprecedented situation, which nobody had seen. And all our theories of change management and understanding, people are going out of the window because this kind of change nobody had anticipated. Now, as you know, I am a psychologist by training, so I would like to focus more on, that part of the conversation in terms of what could be happening to people and what is it that we really need to do within the organization. Of course, the protocols of quarantine and isolation and gloves and masks will come from technical experts, and which we are here to learn and hopefully we'll follow. But I think I've been reading quite a lot actually on what is happening to people. So if you really understand, if you really go into people's psyche, of course there is despair, but more than despair, there is this flip between hope and despair. There are times where you're very hopeful that nothing is wrong, and you look outside because you can't live in despair for very long. So there is hope that it's not that bad and things will get all right, and we are kind of hyping it. Let's be very realistic in understanding people's psyche. So there is this very high point where you say it's all just maybe inflated, it doesn't work that way, and then suddenly you see one case, you hear one big instance, and you kind of dip. So there's this tremendous psychological upheaval which is happening in the minds of people. So there's despair and there is hope, and they're coping with these mixed mechanisms. One, so there is this whole thing related to the disease, which is giving them, which is personal, which is their, relates to their life. But when you look at professional, I think there is this tremendous sense of insecurity. There's a tremendous sense of lack of feedback. There's tremendous sense of isolation, because you really don't know how the business is going to pan out and where the livelihoods, would come from eventually. So there seems to be a double whammy of psychological stress. One which is coming from your survival and all of that, and the second which is coming from your job. So there's anxiety, there's stress, there is ambiguity, and there's hope and despair, as I said, which is kind of flipping up and down. So there are tremendous psychological upheavals that are going on in the minds of people. We have to be deeply conscious of that fact. That's the first point, that there are mixed emotions. That's first. The second is we must, and I don't know how HR would really acknowledge and address this, is the second, which is extremely important, is that each individual is in a unique situation and has a unique context and a unique interpretation of the situation. So the reaction to the situation is very uniquely different. And I was reading so many articles in Harvard Business Review and MIT Stone Review where they're talking about the psychological issues. They're saying, one thing that they're saying for the HR is that one size fits all will not work, because everyone is interpreting their own reality in a unique way. So one thing, so first hallmark of design of any system or dealing with people for these psychological issues has to be flexibility. You have to build in for unique experiences of the people in the way you design your system. And I think that's a big challenge for HR. So if I really had to look at what would be the guiding principles, and I'll come to the brass tacks also a little later and tell you some practices that companies are, and I think Mr. Sengupta has highlighted extremely, very progressive and very forward-looking practices. But so one hallmark is, of course, that it has to be flexible, because people react in different ways, and whatever flexibility we can bring in, we need to bring in. The second, I don't like the word empathy because it smacks of power. I would rather say there has to be sensitivity on the part of the organization. There has to be tremendous sense of, this understanding all the kind of complex emotions and attitudes and feelings which are going on in the minds of people. So HR systems have to be driven by two, guiding principles. One, they have to be sensitive to the kind, and you have to go deeper into understanding the psychology of the people to say, well, this is what they're going through, and then address those issues instead of having a superficial issue, mechanism. I'm always the one who would go for cause and then effect, and then address the cause and effect. That's a deeper level. And second is the flexible. Now, how can, so how do organizations address this? Okay, so you have this whole HR system, and I'll give you some practices. I know of, I've read of companies. I haven't really one-on-one. The companies where I sit on the board, I know their practices. And, to begin with, I must say that this is one time I've seen a very extremely human face of business organization. This is the time when companies could have been, they could have been, bloodshed all over. It could have been very ruthless, because you don't see when business picks up, how does it pick up? But I think I've seen a lot of empathy. Yeah, sorry.
No, it was my laptop's clock.
Oh my God. Tell me when I have to stop. I told you I'm a professor. I'll go on talking.
And
So
I'll never say
you'll
that
have to stop.
you are my teacher first. You can talk through the entire program. I'll never say that. You know that.
No, I think then give the responsibility to someone else to stop me because then I go, no, but very quickly. So you have to, so I know of practices, for instance, some companies where, of course, they've been very, very kind of considerate in job cuts. I don't know of any big companies gone for, big job cuts. This is the time when job cuts should have happened, could have happened, but they haven't happened. So I think extremely positive. They're going for pay cuts across the board, which is excellent. The company where I sit on the board, they've taken a call. If at all they go for a pay cut, the highest they'll start with the top level and they'll go to the lower levels only after the high level cuts are not meeting, they're not able to make the two ends meet.
Absolutely.
So that's, and companies are doing it. That's what the companies are doing. Then, of course, there are examples of companies where people were affected and they needed medical. So they have increased their, medical benefits. They could get, higher compensation for their medical benefits, especially those who are affected by this. Then, and then I heard of a practice where if you are affected and there's a medical expense, the company helps, of course, but they've also made this group of employees where, voluntarily they could chip in and pool money for the affected family. So the company helps and your colleagues and your peers also help in the company, to help you meet
Absolutely.
the challenges.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree.
So that's it, one. Yeah, I think, so some of these practices, because I read, so I can share and you can actually talk about it to other people. So, at one level, that's what is happening. So so at financial level, they're trying to make sure at least that is not a big pressure. I'm very glad to see, this is a very soft side of capitalism, and I'm very happy to see that soft side of capitalism. Then, of course, how do you keep people engaged? I can come back, let others speak, and then I'll come back because, I have a lot of things to say. So let others speak. And
So that's very nice to know, ma'am. First of all, again, I've learned something new from you. It is more important to be sensitive than be empathetic. I totally agree with you. And yes, we have seen the soft face, the humane face of capitalism, which is the need of the hour. And yes, as the other things which had been flowing top down, it's good. Even the job cuts are following the same, or even the pay cuts. They follow top down and not bottom up. So getting Mr. Singh in the conversation, Mr. Singh had been working as a director of Honor Two-Wheelers for a very long time. In fact, one of the pillars of Honor Two-Wheelers in the country, one of the prime reasons of their success, with the manpower, related issues. And now he's with SGT University. So, sir, you are seeing things around. You are seeing how companies are reacting, responding to this challenge. Few insights from your end, what you feel are the right things which are happening and the not so right things which should not happen.
Thank you, Anuj. I would first start between the issue of lockdown and reopening of it. See, initially the nation had to lock down because it had to gear up to face this crisis and prepare itself for the pandemic. And, I had been following this issue right from the beginning. I had been following Dr. Arvind Kumar from Lungs Care Foundation. And to my understanding, what had finally emerged was that, COVID-19, the main challenge is of infectivity, very high infectivity and very rapid infectivity. But as all the medical professionals are aware, and many times what we need to make the common man aware of is that the source of this infectivity is droplets. So whether the droplets transmit while talking or while sneezing, when a person comes contact, and especially through nasal route, like it happens. And even if the droplet falls on some surface and the hand touches that surface, and we have a very natural habit of, I was myself observing on the screen that maybe in last half an hour or so, I would have touched my nose or, my mask at least 4 or 5 times. So it is very natural for the human being, whenever you use something which is external, then the sensitive areas you keep on touching again and again. So whether these droplets get transmitted through the touch of the hands, and the same hands would have touched these droplets, which would have been there on some surface from where you have picked it up, has been the major challenge. And that is why when Dr. Sai was saying that two main things that you have to do is, one is wash your hands all the time, as frequently as possible, and use the mask. So like, so in a situation like that, I found that now that the education cycle of the nation has more or less been complete. Even in the rural areas, you were talking about rural areas. I want to tell you, my cook wanted to go back to his village. And then he says, sir, मेरे को हमारे गांव में किसी को गांव के अंदर घुसने नहीं दे रहे हैं.
Right.
So there is a social boycott of the people who are coming from Delhi or Mumbai or these metros. The villagers are not allowing them to come inside their village, apprehending that they may be transmitting the disease to the entire. So their sensitivity and their, awareness has been quite at a different level. And we actually, as a human, means from despair to, as ma'am was saying, that after a few days we become sensitized to it, kuch nahi hona yaar, kuch nahi hona, and then people just don't bother and cross those boundaries which they should not have crossed. So वैसे भी अपने देश में हम लोग बाउंड्रीज ज्यादा मानते नहीं हैं. सीता मैया ने लक्ष्मण रेखा पार कर दी थी.
Absolutely. So, Mr. Singh, there's a question on this for you. So now you are out of the system of the corporate world. So if I can ask you a question, as it is, you've always been very candid. So now you can be super candid. If in an organization, if the employees, are feeling that their employers, their supervisors are not taking care of, the employees' health and safety, what should the employees do in this case?
See, I tell you, there is a, what we value most in life is life itself. So even the migrant people, we could not make them stay back and hold them back in cities when it came to the question of their lives. So if it is even in any company where the adequate measures are not being taken, or where people feel that the organizations are not taking adequate measures to protect them, in the first place, they will stop coming to the work. They will resist. They will raise their voice. They will not suppress their voice, that I am sure of. So I don't think that organizations which are not actually following the norms prescribed by the administration can survive. There are surveillance mechanisms. There are surprise visits being done by the organizations to find out if there is any loophole in the system. When we opened up, like all OEMs, Maruti, Hero, Honda, and all opened up, there were quite frequent visits by the team. And the initial directions which were coming from the government were not practicable. Somebody saying, please put the people inside your work premises. Please, those who are bringing people in the buses, you start maintaining a adequate distance. As long as the numbers to be transported is less, that was manageable. Then what has happened? There is a reduction in the manpower. At this point of time, even the production is less because of the demand which is there. But otherwise, if I have to transport 4,000 people, and for 4,000 people, if I am using 100 buses, and if I have to, create a social distance and use half the people in the same system, either I have to increase the number of buses, which costs, or I have to reduce the number of people who commute to that. So many things are not practicable. Second thing is, Anuj, like when you work in an assembly line, now assembly line is already designed in a particular manner. That how much is the distance from one station to another station? In some cases, the distance is very less. So how will you do it? Then you are telling people, "Aap those stations handle karo, bhai." And that is how ways and means have been found to start the social distancing. But the inconvenience, habits die hard. The inconvenience that it was causing was not easy. Second challenge is, see, I work in a hospital environment now. I work in a university. And we have MBBS, dental and all courses. It is basically the USP of the university is health education. And I want to tell you that USG rules are, UCG rules are, wherever there is 100 seats of MBBS, you need to have a 740 bed hospital. So we also have a 740 bed functional hospital, which is running round the clock, and there is a COVID ward, there is a lab which does RT-PCR testing. So, what I find is mindset. Mindset is a big challenge. So we had started a helpline. Anybody, and I tell you, means we got different experience. Means we were talking of mindset, the feelings that got generated. There was a sort of, I remember years back when I was a youngster and I used to work with Mrs. Mulgaonkar in a leprosy camp. I remember that those people were outcasted. A similar situation had started emerging even for COVID patients. In a village, if one COVID case was coming up, the whole family was getting outcasted by the neighbors and everybody. And I had to intervene in many cases where the person who is working in my factory and living in a village, and he is calling me up, sir, please SHO se baat kar dijiye, ye agal bagal wale aap pathar uttar chalana shuru kar diye, and that type of situation had started emerging. Now, by grace of God, the numbers which have got cured, and this confidence has started building up that it is not so that anyone who turns out to be positive will for sure lose his life. The numbers which are reflecting that a good number of people will come back, they will recover, has started instilling that confidence in people. And because of that, this mental frame, which was, taking a shape, has started reversing. See, there was a big challenge from where I started. Means whether we save lives or we save livelihoods. So, I met a very senior functionary of the government and he is telling me, अरे हरभजन जी, हमारे लिए बहुत मुश्किल काम है, हमारे लिए तो आगे कुआं पीछे खाई, क्या करेंगे नरेंद्र भाई? अगर ज्यादा दिन लॉकआउट चलाते हैं तब मुसीबत, खोल देते हैं तब मुसीबत, तो हम लोग इसको धीरे धीरे खोलेंगे. And that is what the government has done. Gradually they opened it in a gradual manner. First, the strategy has been very good. I give them all, almost 8 out of 10. I don't say everything that they are talking about is percolating down on the grassroots level in the same quantum. But still, at least the effort has been in the right direction.
So
First, to sensitize people.
cut, 2 marks were cut where, sir?
हाँ जी.
2 number कहाँ कट गए, sir?
2 number जहाँ कट गए वो बताने से मेरे number कट जाएंगे भाई, दोबारा नहीं.
Anuj, don't behave like Indian parents. कि सबको 100% ना करना.
Okay. Another thing which I want to tell you, this mask which I am wearing,
Okay.
this mask.
True. Okay.
Earlier I used to wear that mask. N95.
Okay.
Means even the kids in my house, they used to say, नहीं, वो 5 layer वाला mask खरीदो, 3 layer वाला mask खरीदो. And then suddenly the tables turned. There is a shop called Meena Bazaar. And
Sure.
they used to give big discounts. Suddenly, I used to witness, people used to come in BMW cars and stand in a queue for half an hour to 45 minutes to get that discounted sarees and the apparel. And then suddenly we get a message from them. We are into mask manufacturing now. So please give us a order. So we gave them an order and we found that it is all, designer mask. And by that time, this myth has been broken. It is only the wall mask which you want to wear, and it was really giving you a bad look, of course, I can say.
Surely.
So the product profile is changing, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Earlier, pre-COVID, the focus was more on luxury, on lifestyle. Majority of the expenditure of the well-off people was going in the lifestyle cost rather than in livelihood cost. Now the tables are gradually turning. So the products will lose their meaning, new products will evolve, and the organizations are having a real challenge. It is not that easy a life for the organizations. एक तरफ production नहीं है, दूसरी तरफ market नहीं है.
True.
And if you see the overall situation of the economy is shrinking. Whether we like hearing this or not, the fact of the matter is that 82% revenue of the government comes from just 3 sources: GST, corporate tax, and personal tax. Production has dipped, GST will go down. Organizations making low profit, corporate tax is going down. We are having pay cuts, so the personal tax is going down. All these 3 are interrelated. So I really see that there is a great challenge for us. Yeah, I know Chandan will say that this is not going to happen and the things are moving very fast. In fact, I will ask him to reply later, but I went to Maruti recently.
Okay.
I had visited some of the organizations because I am trying to make a paper that how organizations are addressing, are they behaving with empathy, or are they double faced, showing one face of empathy and underneath there is a salary cuts going on and creating hardships. So I am prepared. So in pursuance of that research, I went to several places. One of them was Maruti. And to my surprise, I came to know when I went there, Anuj, there were around 500 people sitting outside, temporary employees who are called back for employment. So I asked their HR head guy, like, I am very surprised. I took their photographs and all. And he said that the demand, every day booking of Maruti has increased to something like 5,500 to 6,000 per day, which was not there when the things were normal.
Mhm.
Similarly, the tractor industry is on boom.
Yes.
Two-wheeler industry is moving up. So many areas which we were apprehending. So at the end of the day, now I realize the world is not going to change.
Surely, surely. So we surely have a good perspective now, thanks to our corporate experts on how the market is at the ground level, how things are working at the assembly line, and that people should not be losing their jobs on the fact that there'll be just one person handling two stations, so hence we can fire one. So getting Dr. Sai Kiran in the conversation now, Dr. Sai Kiran, there are a couple of points which we had received from our members around the world. Points like herd immunity. Some countries tried it and they failed miserably. Do you think herd immunity can work in a country like ours? Then what should be the ideal time for quarantine? And alternate therapies. What can work and what should be done irrespective of any type?
The mic is muted, Dr. Sai Kiran.
Dr. Sai Kiran, please unmute yourself. Yeah.
I don't know how it works.
Perfect, perfect.
Okay, what is herd immunity? Herd immunity is you develop your natural immunity to the infection without actually getting infected. All right, so to reach a level of herd immunity, at least you need figures of 60 to 70% of people to be infected or recovered from the illness. And that won't happen in just a short span period of time. That may take years or longer to develop. All right, so that is not practical herd immunity, or it will just succeed. Down the years, the virus will mutate itself, like the swine flu virus has, like the influenza virus has, and they will be less infective. Right now, they are at the peak. Now, second thing, what is important to understand is, see, what is the recovery rate? If there is a recovery rate, 80% would recover on their own, like a normal virus infection. 20% are the ones which are likely to have a tough course, and in those come the elderly, the diabetics, the heart patients, the cancer patients, the dialysis patients, or this group of patients. And the mortality figures are even less. All right. The mortality above 85 is around 14 to 16%, above 75 is around 10%. So younger people are, but in India, I think the figures are a little more, the 50 age groups, the mortality has been quite high than globally. And so we are more, just because of its transmission, the rates of transmission and the pandemicity, the way it was going, it was ringing alarming bells. But overall, young people have recovered on their own with a mild infection. So that is one point. Second point was that alternative medicine. As of now, all the medicines that are coming in the paper, or you've heard of it, they're all in clinical trials, and the benefit has not been much, including remdesivir and all, but they are all used on compassionate grounds. right? That, okay, if you have a COVID infection, you will get remdesivir, you will get the IL-6 receptor blockades, and you will get the plasma. These are the therapy every person knows these days, you know. I see patients and they are admitted there. I'm asked these questions on a daily basis. But how many of them work? It just depends, because you do not know whether they are actually benefiting or it is just the virus on its own becomes weak after some time.
Surely.
Coming to the quarantine period, okay.
Right.
See, now the guideline, the things once it came, there was a big quarantine period. Then over the period of time, the quarantine period has decreased. And now they say after 10 days, the virus loses its infectivity. And after 10 days, if you've not been having fever, you're okay. It's okay. You're unlikely to be infected. But old people are still having the virus up to 17th day. They are still positive up to 21st, 26 days. And there is a variation. There have been patients who have been positive for 90 days also. So if you talk about common, I think older people are taking a longer clearance time. About say 65 to 70, they'll probably clear their virus infective load after 17 days. They're likely to become negative. All right. What you want, you know, that for you negative is okay, there is no virus. But the virus loses its infectivity after 10 to 12 days. Means by that time it would have caused damage, or the body's immune system would have coped up with the viral infection. So how long you want to quarantine? A younger age group infected, you will say probably 10 days of illness to another 7 to 10 days more should be, and probably back to work in 3 weeks time.
Okay.
But because you have to, I mean, and when he joins work, I think I would be happy if he has a negative report. Surely. For the safety of other employees.
Absolutely. And not wear an N95 mask.
Yeah.
Okay, and Dr. Sai Kiran, something on the vaccine. When do we expect it, and how long do you feel this COVID is going to last? When is it that kids can go to school?
The kids can go to school?
Yes.
See, I think in France, when they opened up schools, there was an increase in number of cases by 12%.
Mm-hmm.
So when they open up schools or universities, the cases are likely to go up.
Okay.
If you look at it. Now vaccines, it's a live attenuated virus. So you'll be injecting yourself with a virus with a low virulence strain so that your body starts an immune response. I think the clinical trials are on way. And every day there are some vaccine results have come positive and all. How much they are available to the mass public, how much and when would they be available? Do we have a dengue vaccine as yet? How many of us even know about the concept of adult vaccination? Out of 6, have we ourselves got vaccinated for flu? Have we got vaccinated for pneumonia? Or have we got our parents vaccinated for same? See, their adult vaccines are in the market. All right. But for COVID, everyone, the hype is there.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So hype, you feel it's more of hype, the COVID vaccine?
See, people think they will take vaccination, they won't get COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Right? By the time the vaccine comes, people would still be probably, say, once it becomes available to us, even in January 2021, most of us would have developed some sort of immunity. And then if the virus changes its virulence, then you'll have to make a new vaccine according to that strains. So I cannot say how much that would be effective as of date, because let the clinical trial results come. But yes, you still can prevent yourself by mask and hand washing. These basics will be there to stay over the next 2 years at least. That's my opinion.
2 years. That's very...
Yeah, let us look at it. No, China is also having a resurgence of reinfection.
Yeah.
We do not know what is the reinfection rate in our country as of now. We are still, Delhi is just seeing a flattening of the curve, but last 3 days, the number of cases were less. Yesterday, again, they have shot up.
Okay.
And so we do not know what is actually right now. It's too
Surely.
early to say.
Surely. So from kids, now let's go to pregnant women. So Dr. Purva, some of your thoughts on pregnant women. What should be the precautions they should take? What is their exposure and vulnerability? A few thoughts on that, please.
Yeah. So first of all, we have to understand that pregnancy is generally an immunocompromised state. So when we talk about diabetes, hypertensive, adults with cardiac diseases being immunocompromised, pregnancy is also generally an immunocompromised state. So a pregnant woman is generally more prone to routine infections, could be routine virals, could be any other diarrhea, whatever. So obviously she is more prone to the COVID also. And we have to understand one thing, that it's not just her, it's two lives. It's the woman and the unborn fetus. So as of now, we do not have studies which definitely tell us what effects the fetus would undergo if a woman is infected with COVID, and especially in which trimester, early pregnancy versus late pregnancy. But pregnant women should treat themselves with utmost precautions because they are more prone to this. And if this happens, then we do not know what would be the pregnancy outcome, right? Even I would say that in an organization, if you have pregnant women and if their nature of work is such that they can work from home, then they probably should be given that, as ma'am said, sensitivity to be allowed to work from home, right? Unless the nature of work is such that they just have to be present, then probably some rostering can be done such that they have to put in less working hours. And they also have to use the very same precautions. Mask is like jewelry now. So all of us have to wear it, as essential as jewelry is for some women, mask is for everyone. So we have to wear mask in the right manner. And as Mr. Harbhajan was saying, that he noticed he's touched his hands to his face so many times. So average study says that a person would touch their men, that is mouth, ears and nose, about once in 2 to 3 minutes. So that way a face shield works very, very well, because it's just a mechanical obstruction. So the moment you begin to touch your face, you realize that you're mechanically obstructed. And also it mechanically obstructs droplets. So though it's uncomfortable to wear, but that way it can work. And as far as pregnant women antenatal care is concerned, as gynecologists, we try to call them for less number of visits to the hospital. So earlier pregnant women would come very often to the hospital, but now we tailor their visits in such a manner that their blood test, their examination, ultrasound, everything can happen at one go. So in the first trimester, she's coming just once, then she's coming once at 5 months, and so very minimal visits. And we guide them how to take care of themselves at home. Like they can probably buy a BP monitor and do home BP monitoring, or sometimes if they need a home sugar monitoring. And they can keep in touch with us through tele or video consultations. So these are the things that I think pregnant women need to take care of. And if they have any kind of symptoms, they should definitely, certainly report much earlier. One shouldn't take it lightly. Because though there is no data, but we do see that if women develop a COVID infection, then the waters around the baby dry up much faster.
Okay.
So that can lead to a distress in the baby, and we may need to deliver them early. I've had a few patients like that. Okay. So right now there is no official research data, because we haven't yet seen so many pregnant women as to publish a paper. But this is what most clinicians are observing, and clinicians, when they observe something, it's generally proved later on in research. Absolutely. So the waters may dry up, there may be distress around, and the baby also needs special care if delivered to a COVID positive woman. So it's better that prevention is always better than cure. So take such good care of yourself that if possible, one doesn't land up with this.
So Dr. Purva, here comes a pertinent question. If a COVID positive mother delivers a baby, so what is the likelihood or probability of the baby turning positive? And when would be the highest propensity or probability? Am I audible to you, Dr.
Sorry, when would be? When would be what?
If a COVID positive mother delivers a baby, what is the risk of the baby?
Okay, so see, the thing is, we haven't found too many babies to be positive, even if they deliver to a COVID positive mother. But what we do is we have strict protocols. If a COVID positive mother delivers and the baby is isolated from the other babies, and the mother is explained, so she is given a choice whether to breastfeed or not. So depending on the mother's symptoms, if she is not having frank cough or breathlessness, if she is asymptomatic, then with a mask, we may even allow breastfeeding. So then we would allow the mother to breastfeed the child and then take the child away and put them back to nursery. We wouldn't allow too much of kangarooing happen. But we are not seeing babies to be complicated if they deliver to COVID positive mothers. So that's a good ray of hope. Babies are not unnecessarily complicating because of the mother being COVID positive.
Okay, so like normally, like we see in the case of seniors having comorbid conditions, they are more vulnerable and they can be serious repercussions. So such is not the case with newborns, huh? That's what you're trying to say?
Yeah, normally not. Normally not. Yeah, they can see COVID as something they can deteriorate anytime, but normally even if the mother is positive, the newborns are relatively doing quite fine.
Okay.
In fact, we worry much more about the mother because suppose she undergoes a cesarean or something,
True.
so or even a delivery, these are all stress for the body, right? And any disease would worsen during any stress that is given to the body. So a surgery or a delivery, these are all stresses to the body. So a viral infection can very well worsen during this stress. So we have to take care of those points as well, and one has to treat such patients with utmost care.
Truly. Something for the poor dad as well.
No, dads are not poor, they're rich dads.
Okay.
But yeah, so the poor dad needs to test himself and keep up in good spirits. And normally there are very good centers now. We're taking very good care of COVID positive mothers, and most of them are doing reasonably well because see, pregnant women are mostly young patients and they are well compensated patients. So they are likely to recover well. Apart from pregnancy, normally they wouldn't have many other comorbid conditions. So then they are likely to recover well.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So,
Anuj, mothers are pocket editions of God in this world, so don't bother. They will take care.
absolutely.
Mothers are poor dads.
Well said, Singh Saab. So, Mr. Sengupta, what just Dr. Sai Kiran mentioned that this thing might just take 2 years to go away. So, what do you feel should be the HR strategy, company strategy, towards employee safety, business, towards everything in general? If it's 2 years, it's going to take.
Yeah, I agree with what Dr. Sai said regarding at least 2 years that this will happen. First, I think we all agree that this is not something which, it's a virus which was created, and it is changing its shape. So you can see in the month of October, November, when the winter sets in and the smog is there, there's a study which has been conducted by Dr. Saluja who says that time there would again be a spike. We should be ready for all such circumstances and take precautions till the time that the vaccine is ready, which might be a year on, and all precautions that are being taken right now, all the SOPs that are being followed need to be followed throughout this period, including social distancing, including fumigation, including hand wash continuously, and working with the least number of people wherever possible. At present, we are working in all offices with only 33% people on rotational basis. All people above the age of 60, all pregnant women, all patients or people who are diabetic and hypertension have been asked to work from home only. I think that will continue for further also. Rest on rotational basis, yes, but precautions need to be taken. And coming back to Harbhajan's point, that will take time for the economy to recover. I don't agree with them at all. See, the four-wheeler, the two-wheeler, and the tractor industry is moving. We today as an organization are back at 98% levels of last year, right? And in the month of August, the forecast is we will cross the 100% and go back to 2018-19 levels. If that is the case, people are buying, people are optimistic, people are going in for two-wheelers, for four-wheelers, and farm plus infrastructure market also. I think we'll bounce back much earlier. We are a resilient country and people also, and optimist that we will. Harbhajan, as far as the profit level is concerned, please understand, a lot of your expenses have gone down. Your travel, which was around maybe 8%, has come down to 0% through the virtual meetings. The tax rate has already gone down in last year. You will find companies making more profit this year than maybe last year. That is my take.
Beautiful.
I am hopeful, I am optimistic. And as I said, when the lockdown did not end on 14th of April, earlier we had paid the salaries on 23rd of March itself. We spoke to all the staff and they agreed to a 50% wage cut voluntarily. When this became known to the workers and the unions, they came back, reciprocated by saying, we will not go in for the 4-year long-term settlement dues that are on from 1st of April. Further, they said, we will go in for a 5% cut on ourselves. That created a greater bonding between the associates and the staff, which can be seen today. We are back at a 98% level with 32% less manpower. And the ideas have come from the associates and contractual associates on line balancing, on re-layouting of the lines.
Great.
Earlier, in the die casting places, there were 3 people working on 1 machine. Today, it is the reverse. It is 1 + 1 working on 3 machines.
So you're saving money actually. Are you?
Absolutely.
Great. So with that, coming to Kanika ma'am. So Kanika ma'am, we have seen, a lot has been spoken that Indians, are more resilient, are more, can be more innovative, do things in a better stride. A lot of people around the world and have relatively had lesser mental health challenges. At the same time, we have always taken mental health as a stigma as well. There's a mental health issue. People don't want to go to a psychiatrist or a psychologist. They'll say, "Mera beta mental thoda hai, or mera bachcha thoda pagal hai," stuff like that. So, has that in a way helped us to be resilient? That's on the lighter, side. But what is it that makes us more resilient, as people?
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting observation, Anuj. And while you were talking, I was reminded of recently. But before I start my discussion, I must agree with Mr. Sen Gupta entirely that, you are saving a lot on costs. And whenever I go and talk to the company, I say that just look at your operational expenses, pick up pennies on the floor, and you'll see your business improving a lot more. So I agree entirely that a lot of costs related to employees, operational, facilities, travel, all of this is going to go down. And these are, when you add them up, they come to a substantial cost. So I agree with him that, you cut down the costs and you will have, good business coming up. Now, coming to your point, very interesting, so Anuj, I usually have a maid who lives with me. So the last one left. This one's with me. She left. And she's in the village, but ever since all this happened, I've been in touch with whoever has been working for me to make sure they're fine and all. So she wants to come back. And I told her, look, you can't come back because Delhi is this and you have so much problem. So, she says, Madam, aap log bahut darte ho. I said, what do you mean? बोले यहाँ तो कुछ नहीं है, हम लोग तो आराम से घूम रहे, किसी को कुछ हुआ भी नहीं है. और मैंने कहा अगर हो भी जाएगा तो तुमको तो पता नहीं चलेगा क्योंकि वहां तो वैसे ही मलेरिया से 5,000 लोग साल में मर जाते हैं. I may be wrong in my numbers, but some health experts tell me that there are huge number of deaths happening per day owing to malaria and similar things. So there is a sense of so there are a couple of things. One, so I said किस चीज से डरते हैं? The most telling statement was, बोले आप लोग मरने से बहुत डरते हो. And that sense of candidness that, that for them, death is a very natural, they see it happening all around all the time. And for them, it's not that big a deal. I'm just being very brutally harsh, but I think that is a reality. For them, life is very cheap in India. We don't really value it as much as it is valued in those. So that's one of the reasons why you have resilience. So at worst, kya hoga? ये हो जाएगा. But then there is this whole notion of, your punarjanma, your karma and all of that, which is destiny, which is kind of determining. I think a major factor in the sense of calm is also, acceptance of a larger force, which is kind of there to take care of you. And if it doesn't, then it was destined and there's very little that you could do. So I think all those, and then I think then there are bigger issues to worry about. You have to get your 2 square meals per day and you have to take care of basic things. So I think all those things put these issues in the backdrop. They don't really become all that significant because the larger issues. And so, I can understand I'll tell you another instance. I know somebody who's going through a severe, problem, stress and depression and all. And and she's from a very good family. And when she went and met a homeopathic doctor, his first reaction was, "ये आप अमीरों की problem है, ये problem तो और किसी को होती नहीं है." So there is this whole notion that because people don't have those bigger worries, so they have these, worries, these issues of depression and problem is another thing which so you really have to hit the problem where the roots really are. So I think there are a whole lot of these factors, the destiny and larger problems and the social belief. And so it's not about stigma. They believe that Amir log jinke paas, they don't have any other thing to worry about, they have these depression problems. So which is not correct, I think, which is absolutely, cruel and incorrect. So to answer your question, I think these are the issues which are, and that is why there is a stigma also, because people are not willing to accept it as a real problem. And so there is this whole issue of if if you have a problem, then there's something wrong and you're not normal and things like that. Okay. I think that will take some time to go, especially in the interiors, though there is an opening up in the bigger cities where people are educated and you see more instances, people are coming out and talking. But the whole civil society, the school system, for me, any change starts with the school. The moment you start sensitizing your children to issues, they grow up to be very responsible. At that time they're learning, they're open to new ideas and concepts. For anything, somebody asked me, love for art, I said teach them in school. Understanding mental health, teach them in school. Once you do that, I think then of course these things take time, and so hopefully they would improve with the passage of time. Okay, they're deep down and things are changing, and hopefully things would change a lot more.
Totally.
But do you want me to? Okay, all right.
So we'll quickly go to Mr. Singh, and then there's one question also. We'll take that up, and then we can wrap up. So Mr. Singh, you've been hearing all our experts. You heard Kanika ma'am on mental health and on how possibly that's not much of an issue of mental health in the rural areas. And Mr. Sengupta is very positive on the economic front. And so what are your thoughts? I'm sure you've been posting a lot of stuff on chat. Please feel free. It's your time.
Harbhajan ji, you're muted.
You are muted, sir.
I'm sorry.
Perfect.
I was only wondering that if organizations can take care of 90%, 98% of their production requirements with 38% less manpower, how long will they continue with that empathy of paying that 38% the salaries, making them sit home? A time will come when the real HR man will come out of people like Chandan and me, and will start proposing, boss, ye cut kar do, inko is tarah VRS de do, ye de do. It may not be happening in Sandhar, but let me tell you honestly, it is happening in a big way across the board in the industry, especially with vendor companies which are tier 2 and tier 3. So, on the face of it, we never want to talk about the things which are not very pleasing. We don't want to talk about the things which are many a times the realities of life. But like ostrich syndrome, if you put your head in the ground, it doesn't mean that the world does not exist. The reality is still the reality. I also pray that things come back to normal and better normal than what we were having earlier. But I still want to say that, and again, I was very pleased to hear the Professor Kanika when she said that the mindset, different status have different mindset. People living in slums means so many people dying, seeing so many deaths happening, that sensitivity is different. Like yaar ho gaya, Bhagwan ki marji, anything which happens, it is Bhagwan ki marji. So that is the mindset. We are too precautionary. मुझे भी कई बार irritation होती है मेरे बच्चे बोलते हैं यू आर ए सीनियर सिटीजन, डोंट गो आउट ऑफ द हाउस, ये हो जाएगा वो हो जाएगा। तो मैं कहता हूँ यार अब जब होना होगा हो जाएगा ना। वी हैव बीन ग्रूम्ड विद दैट माइंडसेट कि हमें तो हमेशा यही सिखाया गया सब जीना मरना भगवान के हाथ में है। जब समय आपका आ गया होगा तो आप चले जाओगे, तो ना मास्क बचाएगा और ना शील्ड ने बचाना है। एंड मे बी, एंड आई ऑल्सो आस्क पीपल एट टाइम्स, सपोज इफ यू डोंट डाई ऑफ कोविड, विल यू नेवर डाई? So the thing is, we need to take precautions that we need to take, but at the same time, we should not keep on feeding our mind unnecessarily and burdening it to an extent that we get into fear psychosis and stop behaving as a normal human beings. So that is what I wanted.
Surely, fear psychosis surely has to be avoided, but at the same time, we need to take the precautions, not just for our own self, our families and people around us.
Sure. That is for sure. Yes.
So we have a question. So Mr. Jain has a question. Mr. Jain, if you want.
Anuj, can I come in for 1 minute?
Surely, Mr. Sengupta.
Give him only 30 seconds.
Okay, fine. I'll complete in that. Don't worry. So yes, not 38%, it was 32%.
Okay.
Another new which happened is of loaning of employees. We had employees at the locations and they could not go back to their native places. We loaned them to the essential services and the food industry, free of cost, right? And same thing happened when Mahindra and Mahindra at Jaipur did not have any work. They gave us their associates free of cost again as a loan. I think this is a new norm which will be doing rounds across the corporates and industries also.
So employees on the ground.
Region based, but will happen.
It will be resisted tooth and nail. It is only a matter of time. बाकी कंपनियां बैठा के पैसे दे रही हैं, आप हमसे काम करा रहे हो और वो भी दूसरी जगह।
खाली बैठे पैसे तो हम दे रहे हैं ना, so let them work gainfully.
I am only telling people live by comparisons, my friend.
Okay,
They will say
okay.
in that company is paying people by making them sit. You are making me run around as a service boy. So there will be other type of problems which will crop up.
Okay.
So we have
Fine.
Mr. Jain also. Mr. Jain, you can ask your question. You had a question to our top doctors in the house. Please feel free to ask. You can just unmute yourself if you're there. We can see you. Can you hear us, Mr. Jain? Or do you want to ask the question? Should I ask on your behalf? Okay, I think I'll ask on his behalf. So Mr. Jain wants to know that, and it's a question to Dr. Sai Kiran and Dr. Apurva. First of all, he's very thankful for your service. His question is that what, in the present situation, what worries the most and what gives the most hope?
Sorry, was the question for me?
So this question actually is for all, but yeah, we can start with the doctor. What worries you the most of the current situation, and what gives you the most hope at the same time?
Yeah, so what worries me the most is that people are laxing their precautions. Now I see when I walk on the road, everyone's walking with a mask down. They're not following social distancing. There will be a chai wala with 10 people doing their gappa. There will be a pan ki redi. Everybody will be enjoying there. So basically what is happening is people are becoming lax in their precautions because they now feel that, okay, ab to itna nahi hai COVID, right? Which is not the truth at all. It's still lurking all over us and it can just spike up any moment, and we are expecting that. And with the festivals coming around the corner and with people laxing in their precautions, we may actually shouldn't land up making a mistake such that we have to suffer much more than what we have now. Because fortunately we've done quite okay till now. The government stands have been good and we have managed to maintain it below the capacity of healthcare to handle, or nearly at the capacity at which our healthcare could handle. So if we lax in our precautions now, then we can actually land up in more trouble. So for me, that is the most worrisome point.
Great.
Because this is the time to take even more precautions, because we want to finish it or bring it to just a very, very low level, not to lax right now.
Absolutely. Dr. Sai Kiran, points from your end. What worries you most and what gives you most hope? So you need to unmute yourself, sir. Dr. Sai Kiran. Yeah.
Is it audible?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so what worry? I agree with Dr. Apurva. What is worrying is common, so no second thoughts on that. And what gives us hope is that 80% would just get cured. It's a self-limiting viral infection, it will just get cured. The only problem is the fear psychosis that has gripped our minds that COVID ho gaya. Second point is what this social outcasting is going on in the neighborhoods. That's another worrisome factor. And I think the society wakes up to a point that, it's going to be in your streets any day. It's just not that any day it could just land up in your streets. It could just land up in your own house. And so it's not that you could be on the same side of the road also. So I think we have to accept that it's going to be a part of life. We do not need to social outcast. And we'll come out of it. That is it. That you have to be hopeful. And the fear that, oh, COVID ho gaya, you start getting negative thoughts. This complication, that complication. People have become so educated through the media that, oh, ye ho jayega, wo ho jayega. Abhi ye dawai chahiye, wo dawai chahiye. It's too much of hype and fear that has been created.
Okay.
Just to take precautions, I think, should suffice.
Beautiful, beautiful, fantastic. Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, you have to unmute yourself, ma'am.
Yeah. I just thought I will say this definitely as as a thought. Of course, there is the fear of life and huge numbers. Actually, you're losing huge numbers to this pandemic, which is the biggest fear we have. But I think a couple of positives. One, I think people in general, at least people in the cities, are now becoming more conscious of their health. In fact, I was joking with somebody that with all the vitamin D and C and B and zinc that we are taking, if we survive this, we live 100 years because we've developed immunity. So I think there is going to be this tremendous sense of health consciousness, which will probably improve your longevity and health. And demographers really need to look at it because suddenly there is this whole concern for health. I've had very low vitamin D levels for years. Never bothered about it. I mean, I'm educated and my doctor's been telling me every single time, prescribes me, but I get it and I keep it and it's left like that. But now religiously, I take it every single day. So there is this health consciousness, which is going to change the profile of people. That's one. Second, I don't know, I'm just being very optimistic that even the businesses that I have seen, the hardcore businesses who were like, very short term, month on month profits and this and that, that was the be all and end all for them. The profits in the bottom line and the balance sheet was, the most hardcore of them, because they now see the fear of death so real, that value system is changing a little bit. And I have a feeling, and I think that's a fond hope, that this extremely greedy short-term phase of capitalism might just change a little bit, at least for a short while. Relationships are becoming important. People are realizing how important it is to be with people. And so this whole, very materialistic kind of sole pursuit of materialistic gains, I don't know, I'm being hopeful, might change. And last, and the most important thing, I must add, I think the right professions are getting their due recognition in society. For far too long, I think the businesses had become this overarching institutions. If you look at the 20 most powerful people in the country, they're going to be industrialists or CEOs. We've grown up in a different, and now the right people, that is the doctors and the people who are actually critical for the survival of I come from a family of doctors. My grandfather was a doctor who graduated in 1933, by the way, way back in 1933. And we have grown up with a very staple diet of the fact that this is the most noble profession.
Absolutely.
This was, but somehow, over the years, it used to pain me to see how the profession had taken a back seat, and there were all kinds of allegations which were, made against the profession. I do hope sincerely that, these things will change and we'll have a more positive, outlook, and we'll recognize where to put our money, or where, what are really critical for our society.
Totally.
So I thought I like the positives.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And it could only come from a teacher. The doctors are surely the superheroes who are saving the day, who, without any fear, selflessly are in the middle of all the action with so many people super infected around them, and they're still doing it. They're endangering themselves, their families, and still they are at it. with ever increasing resilience and force. Really hats off, really hats off. Big salute to all the doctors. And thank you so much, Jerry sir, for organizing such a beautiful session for us, coordinating with all the speakers. And we'll be posting this very soon after editing on all our social media channels, so that everybody can benefit from all these important and priceless sutras that we have discussed. Like, I myself did not know that a N95 mask is so dangerous. You know, that sanitizing hands is not really, you know, the option. Washing hands is more important. You can actually get more diseases by sanitizing all this time. And that's going to take 2 years. You know, it's not going to go away. And most important, the empathy and the way we have to be there for each other. And, innovation is really winning. Innovation is really, like, if you look, I can give you my example. Last year, the entire year, digitally, we had engaged 0.6 million people in the entire year. Now, in just 4 months, we have engaged 1 million, more than 1 million people across 125 countries just through one series of YF Gurus Live. That's the way we have innovated and transformed. So it's a time to transform, it's a time to innovate and to be there for each other. So thank you so very much, fellow speakers, for really powering this so well. Thank you so very much. And thank you, Jerry sir, for making it happen.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a nice day. Stay safe. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.